It's a brand new year, and there's a local nonprofit that we believe in their mission of creating more housing opportunities for people here in Connecticut who really need it. These are people who are working in our state, for example, who want to be able to live at least in or around the towns or cities that they work in. But they can't because it's hard to pay for it or there just aren't enough options. These are families that are aging and staying here in Connecticut, but they need to downsize or they need to be able to go to assisted living. Where can they go that it's actually affordable? And that term of affordable housing has gotten so tainted over recent years because there's such a housing crisis here and across the country. And so we want to talk about what this nonprofit is doing and has been doing for decades, Connecticut Housing Partners. And joining us to talk more about this, of course, is Renee. You are very familiar with Renee here on a monthly basis. She checks in to give us the very latest on what's going on with CHP and how this is directly impacting Connecticut residents. Renee, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for your time. How are you?
Very good, and Happy New Year to you and all your listeners.
I'm so glad to have you here, Renee, and I'm glad this morning that we're going to kind of take a closer look, really, at some concrete examples, for example, of people who have been directly impacted when they do get that housing opportunity. I mean, do you mind kind of kickstarting this a little bit in giving us an example to start off with?
Yes. So one thing I want to say is that I don't know if other people are noticing it, and maybe I'm just noticing it because of the business that I'm in, but homelessness is now becoming more in sight, more plain in sight. Mm-hmm. Historically, we all knew that there was homelessness and that we needed additional housing, but you didn't really see it. Now I'm beginning to see it. So even right up the street from where our corporate headquarters are in Trumbull, there's a commuter lot, and I'm noticing that people are living out of their cars in the commuter lot. So I actually approached a woman who was living there, and it's very dangerous. She's been approached by men. The police are trying to shoo her away. They don't want her there, so then she has to move around with her car. And it's really a very difficult situation. And she's 61 years old. So she's somebody's mother. She could be somebody's grandmother. And so it's really a heart-wrenching condition. So anyone who's listening who happens to be experiencing homelessness, dial 211, get yourself connected to a homeless shelter so that you can enter into the Coordinated Access Network. That's the program where they help house people who are homeless through the Rapid Rehousing Program. It's a really great program. It's a really important program. And my company participates, as other landlords do participate in that program as well. So it's really important to get connected to that.
And obviously, we do know that the state of Connecticut certainly has a focus on creating more housing, again, making it more affordable for the average Connecticut resident. But I do want to focus on CHP because we do know, like many things in the state, while they have great intentions, it may not happen as quickly as we need it to happen. And there is an immediate need, as you just mentioned, Renee. It's so in our face. And the thing is when we talk about homelessness, it's not what people think they're looking at. We're not talking about the addict who's strung out on the streets or people who decided to not go and get a job and really create opportunity for themselves. These are everyday, hardworking Connecticut residents. These are people who are graduating from college and have to move into their parents' basement because there are no options out there. These are aging parents who need to downsize, but where can they go where it's a safe community and they can afford it after they've retired? These are everyday people in Connecticut who should have the opportunity to be able to afford living in a home. And so I want to talk about the goals for CHP and also sort of this mantra for 2024, making home happen. What can you tell us?
So you're absolutely right. The state is investing millions of dollars into this issue, but, it takes time. Mm-hmm. And so the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, they just issued a new report on the housing crisis in Connecticut. And last year we were talking about we were short 89,000 units. Now we're up to 92,500 units. And it's also recognizing that the housing crisis is creeping up and hitting the middle class. So this is the first time that has actually happened where they're able to measure that. And so and even though the state has a tremendous amount of units in the pipeline, about 6,500 units to be built in the next 3 years, if you're short 92,000 units, that's just a scratching of the surface. So what we're trying to do is really ramp up our fundraising. We don't want to just rely on the state financing and tax credits that we get, through the federal government. We want to be able to ramp up our fundraising so that we can independently build properties outside of the governmental function. So we're starting to speak to area business people and, with deep pockets to help us and try to create some kind of advisory council so that we can move forward independently of the state. We still work with the state. We always will, but we want to do it quicker and faster. So fundraising is going to be a huge factor for us. Another thing is that they have a housing commission right now with the state legislator, and they're trying to figure out how we can move this faster. So they're looking at some of the low-hanging fruit in regards to, the productivity and some of the bureaucratic things that maybe can get pushed aside. They're looking at the state's land bank and if any of the land can be used to provide affordable housing. So I'm going to be working with them in tandem. I work with a group of other people who generate affordable housing. We get together monthly so that we can make sure our voices are heard, so that, the legislator body is making good decisions that are going to help us in the process. Because, sometimes legislators who don't understand the problem intimately, there could be unintended consequences, not done intentionally, but we want to make sure that they're educated. I actually am, going to be speaking with the majority leader tomorrow to make sure that he understands the perspective of nonprofits and, the struggle that we have in building affordable housing. So lobbying is going to be a big focus for me in 2024, only because they're actually paying attention to this problem, which, is a moment in time that we can't ignore and we have to be able to jump onto.